I'm serious about this. If you don't fucking man up, this program will not work for you.
If those million people believed what was on my site, you'd have competition. You'd be fighting in the streets with a baseball bat and a machete to fight people for deals. I can tell you with my hand on where my heart, I proved to you this morning I had a fucking heart. Where my heart is, that's not going to be the case. Yet it hasn't been the case for the 50 years I've been doing it. 50 years I've been doing this. 27 and a half years with you guys. I didn't have gray hair before I started coaching. You go back and look at the fucking pictures. You go back and look at the commencement speech at CSUN in 1991. I look like my grandson to me now. That's 29 years ago. 2 years before I started with you meatheads. And my hairline jumped up about, I don't know, a couple inches. I haven't got into comb over yet. I'm not at the comb over stage, but see some of these comb over, they start back here and they whip the hair around. Take me first before I relegate myself to that, please. But then I turned gray because I didn't understand that you had no self-esteem. I just didn't get it. I now get it. Okay, anything else about Gerard? Somebody else's hand was up. Yes, ma'am.
He didn't know anything, but he surrounded himself.
He's just like us. He didn't know anything.
And just surrounded himself with people who knew everything.
Well, no, that's another. They don't know everything. But all they need to know is more than you. That's all they need to know. The people that need to know everything are your big accounting firm and your big law firm. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even though he knew, like, he was allergic to animals.
Oh, fuck, that's funny. It happens to be a true story, though.
He still went to the...
He wanted to snap that black cat's neck. And when he got to his office, he sent me an email. He said, I got my ear, and something else, either his tongue swollen, I forget what, his tongue and his lips got swollen, his ears got swollen. Yeah, he was allergic to animals. He still is. He doesn't go in the hospital. He doesn't go, and he says, what's worse is the grooming places are much worse than the hospital. And when you think about it, well, they're just shampooing and cutting hair and shit like that. Yeah. But you're right, he didn't. And again, even though I know it's hard for you to understand, especially on the first day, that you don't have to know anything. You know, you just... And when I tell, just a moment, when I tell people, when I got in the oil business, I knew as much as you could put on the head of a pin about the oil business. I knew nothing. Now, 35 years later, I'm considered an oil man. I know a lot. Now I'm too afraid to do some of the oil deals I did before because I know what can go wrong. I know what can go wrong. I did a lot of deals that should have blown up, but they didn't. You know, that's just it. You're right, you don't have to know. But the board, starting with your chairman, who's there to protect you, you're going to want to have a board meeting, and I'm going to tell, well, don't tell me, don't write me, please. And the board members are going to tell you, we want to have a board meeting to discuss strategy. You need strategy like you need AIDS. Structure follows strategy, and the strategy is, and Gerard said it very simply, succinctly, your first deal. Nothing else matters. But when you have that first board meeting and you're all sitting around and there's 200 years or 250 years of experience and you've got 1 day of experience, it will become intuitively obvious to everybody at that meeting that you're wasted space. And why do you have 60 or 70% of this business when you don't know shit? And at a meeting in Manhattan, they will come out and they will say, hey, what is this prick from Brooklyn? What's he got 64% of this deal? Doesn't know shit. And that's exactly how they're going to say it. And this is the time your chairman steps into the breach like RoboCop. We're here because of this worthless piece of shit. It was his energy from this worthless piece of shit. It was his idea from this worthless, to have your back. I hear from you kids all the time, I got your back. You don't know what got your back even means. But that motherfucking chairman better have your fucking back. Otherwise, you'll be out on your ass. It's the single most important person you bring on the board. The chairperson. I have a couple of chair-its. But for the most person, it's about 90% of the time it's a guy, 10% of the time it's a gal, and 0.5% it's a it. But we don't care if it's a it, a gal, or a guy, as long as they step into the breach, like RoboCop, and remind everybody at that fucking meeting that you're all here because of this kid. And I've had deals collapse right there because the chairman doesn't do that. The chairman says, he steps forward like RoboCop and says, yeah, you're right. Let's pay the guy a finder's fee. Let's get rid of him. I see it happen, not monthly, but 4 or 5 times a year. And then what do you say? Well, we'll tell you what to say later on in the week. So you don't want to have any fucking meetings. And having a virtual meeting vis-a-vis Skype and Zoom they can still see that you're not worth a shit. When you send your executive summaries, and I'm getting ahead of myself, executive summaries, you put together your mission, blah, 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 the industry, your chairman's profile, everybody's profile. Most of your profiles you don't even have to attach because they don't add any value. Adding value has been a term that's been around 20, 25 years. To add value. Well, what value do you add, possibly? Even in your dreams? Probably not. Now, we had a guy from Mayo Clinic years ago. He added value in a medical roll-up. He had credentials, stretched from here to the fucking castle. Mayo Clinic, da-da-da-da. But those profiles and resumes are few and far between for the kid that came to the seminar. Normally it's not. Normally it's not. It's normally a guy who is a online e-commerce piece of dog shit that wants to be the CEO of a hospital roll-up. For those of you that have e-commerce backgrounds, don't even put it down. Some of you haven't never done anything other than e-commerce. I'm not going to embarrass you by telling you to raise your hand. And do it right. Remember I told you, you got to scrape the end of the skin in your mouth if you're going to off yourself. But I would never, this is metaphorically speaking, because I would never want anybody, because everybody deserves to live. Horse shit. Most of you shouldn't have been born. There was another question.
You mentioned the importance of keeping a good relationship with your financial institution.
Oh, I don't agree with that either. Because then, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. I want to talk about banking with banking, but you don't. Because they're like whores on the street corner with short skirts. You have no idea how the banks and the accountants and lawyers will prostitute themselves to get business now. Because there is no fucking business. Don't you understand? How many fucking times do I have to tell you? Why would a big accounting firm drive 2 hours to go meet that French bitch that dismissed them in 30 minutes? Because they're dying for business. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, but I believe it was the last seminar you mentioned what you called the Dead Sea Scrolls, where your lawyer drafted a letter saying that completed all of your financial, 100% of your financial
Yeah.
obligations?
Yeah, well, I mean, the lawyers and accountants, this is a long time ago, when I had a letter that I used to carry here that it said, and it was one of the big law firms, actually the lawyers to the president, the White House,